So, folks watching, this is a change from the regular scheduled stream. I did announce it, but obviously because it was last minute, I also announced it last minute. Basically, we are not going to be doing a 1v1 battle like we normally would. My opponent couldn't make it, didn't have time to find a replacement. So instead, we're going to go through how to actually get into playing on Tabletop Simulator. And this is something that I'm going to probably edit down and actually post as a video to the channel as well, because I actually think it's really handy. A lot of people don't even realize that you can play the game for near as makes no difference free. And even those that do don't necessarily realize how easy it is to get into Tabletop Simulator. I'm a bit of a dunce when it comes to stuff like this, and I've managed it. So I believe anyone can, personally. I genuinely believe that this is pretty easy for anyone as a way to get into playing, not just Infinity, but lots of other games as well. So yeah, we're in my Steam store page here, and that's because most people will probably buy Tabletop Simulator on Steam, and you can see it's currently on sale for £7.49 in the UK, which is extremely cheap. It's already in my Steam library, so I can't buy it. But this is the first thing you will need. You will need to find this game. You don't have to buy from the Steam store. There are other third-party stores that sell Steam keys for it, so you can buy it elsewhere, but you'll need a copy of this game. It's very cheap at the moment, so I would suggest buying it during the autumn sale. You know, strike while the iron is hot. There's no time like the present to get into it. And what this is basically a physics engine and a tabletop environment designed for you to play games on. But on its own, obviously, this would not play Infinity. It doesn't know how to. As you can see here, it has a lot of standard games, but doesn't know how to play Infinity without being told. And to tell it, you need to modify it. So you need to get to the workshop page for this game. And the easiest way is to go to your library, find the game, and then there's a tab here for workshop right there. So that's the quickest way to find the workshop page. Once you're on the workshop page, this is where you can grab mods for TTS to allow you to play certain games. You can see here that there's one for Magic the Gathering, so that you can play Magic the Gathering on TTS. But we're searching specifically for Infinity, so we're going to type in Infinity the game, and you will see a few different things are going to come up. This Infinity the game, Corvus Belli, this is the main bare minimum mod that you need. This is the one that you have to get. So where I've got a little tick here, that means I'm subscribed to this mod. Normally this will be a blank box that you can tick like this with a plus. So if you see this little plus in the corner here, you click this, and you are now subscribed to that mod. I don't mind subscribing to that mod. I would also recommend Wyrock No Die's maps. Wyrock No Die is a fantastic mapper, and he's made a ton of... They're all 4x4 maps, so they are for the bigger size games, but they're really useful. So I'd also recommend grabbing these. So you'd grab this, you'd grab this. And then once you've got those, what do you need next? You don't really want to start a game of Infinity without an army list. So the next thing you'd want to do is build an army list. Now, I'm going to presume at the point that you're ready to build an army list, you've read over the basic rules, you have some ideas. You're probably going to know what faction you want to play, and you will hopefully already have an opponent lined up with whom you will have agreed a mission, you will have chosen which factions you're playing, so you'll know what your list is trying to do. One of the things about Infinity that differs to a lot of other war games is that you agree factions and missions prior to playing the game. And then you write a list that is tailored to that. Tournaments don't work exactly the same. You take two different lists to tournaments and you choose which one you want to play depending on the mission and the opponent. But when you're just playing a casual game with somebody, you do kind of fully tailor your list. So the next thing you would be doing is you'd be on this page writing an army list. So you've now got a list, you've got Tabletop Simulator, you've got the mod, you've got a list. What do you do with it all? The first thing you're going to want to do is move this list out of the way. So I'm going to pop it on another monitor for a minute. And you're going to want to start Tabletop Simulator. So you're going to go to your library. You're going to play Tabletop Simulator. you're now going to either create or join a game. If your opponent is hosting, then you'll join and you'll type in a server name and a password. If you're hosting, you'll create a server, and now you're presented with this screen. And you can see here under Workshop that Infinity the game is right there. It was also on the first splash screen, so you could click it from here or you can click it from here. And the first thing you're going to want to do is click this and load it. And that's going to just give you the basic mod. And we're going to have an empty table, essentially. So everything's going to load in. And now you'll start to see how to actually use TTS. So this is the Infinity mod. This is what it looks like. This is where the board goes when you've chosen a board. Over here, we've got this little section here for generating a map and for lighting patterns. Over here are all the assets. So there are some pre-built maps here. You'll also find in here the rule books for both Infinity and Code One. If you look in here, you can get a tablet up with the wiki on it and an actual copy of the full rulebook. This is the entire full real rulebook, as well as the quick play scenarios as well. So everything that you need is in here. You don't actually have to own anything. It's all there for you. The only thing you need to own is TTS. And Corvus Belli are really good about making all of that possible. Here's a thing for custom miniatures. So you can use these to create your own miniatures for the game. I don't really know how these work yet. I would like to look into them at some point, but I don't really know how they work yet. A link to the TTS Infinity Discord. That's right, the game is so popular on TTS that it actually has its own TTS dedicated Discord, which is awesome. Faction-specific dice if you want them. You don't have to use plain dice. So that's everything that lives over here. Over this side, if we take a little walk, are the armies. I don't know if I'm being a dummy, but there are 2 more Code 1 factions that don't yet appear to have been put into the mod. I don't know if that's something that is happening down the line, but it doesn't matter because the models for them, so those 2 missing armies are Nomads and Ariadna, which are obviously the 2 latest additions to Code 1. The models are still in the Infinity packets, so you can still get access to the models themselves. You're not going to struggle there. It's just that when you hover over them, they won't have stat lines. But I'll show you more about that shortly. But this is where you get your models. You just right-click these, the one for whatever faction, hit search, and it brings up all your models here. And you can search for specific things like this, and it will give them to you. And then you can just drag them out here and drop them onto the table. So what I'll often do is, with the search bar open, I'll kind of come over here to my play area and start dropping models down. There you go. There's an example. There's an orc. The next thing we actually want to do, is look at these little MacGuffins. So this is your order tracker. You don't use command tokens in Code 1, so you can ignore these, but you do use lieutenant orders. Nicely with these, they're grayed out on the backside, so when you've used them, you can just flip them over to show that you've used them. And obviously, however many orders you generate each turn, you'll want to clone a number of regular order tokens to represent that. So there's your regular order tokens, and then once you've used them, you just flip them, and everybody can see, because they're grayed out on the back, very easy. So you've got that. You've got classified decks here. I don't use these, but they exist. This is the die roller. I really like the die roller. This tells it whether or not to put the die roll in the chat box. This will just clear the die from here. This adjusts the number of dice you're rolling, and you'll see it expressed down here. In Infinity, you never really roll more than 5 dice. So if you're rolling 5 dice, there you go. And your results again will print to the chat. 1, 1, 7, 9, 12. That would have been a really good BS roll. That would have been really, really nice. So you can see it's all very, very simple and straightforward to use. Over here, you'll find your templates and tokens. So you've got your, you don't use impetuous in Code 1, you don't use repeaters in Code 1, but you do use unconscious, you do use wound, you do use prone, you do use targeted. Those are all ones that matter. You don't use suppressive fire, no. You've also got the large and small teardrop templates, which again you do use in Code 1. But those are all there. They're there for you to use. And then you've also got these bins that have got extra things in them as well. So these are worth a look through because there's all sorts of extra stuff in here. Like the deployables, for example, has got the anti-personnel mines in it, which you do use in Code 1. Things of that kind of nature. And that's most of the stuff that you're going to interact with. These hidden zones, you can't see into them once you've chosen a color. So if I choose to be red player, I now can't see into the blue one, but the red ones are transparent for me. And what that means is that any hidden miniatures and stuff like that, any hidden information that you need to keep secret, you can dump into these, and your opponent won't be able to see it, but you will. You've also got this little miniature case here, which you can put all of your miniatures into within a private area, and then have this out on the table. So that's always an option. You can use the private area over in the corner here to load all your miniatures up into it. And then again, you can open this and it will be full of miniatures. So you've got lots of ways of controlling your hidden information, which is really handy. So we want to get a map on here, first of all. That's something we want to do. There are, as I said, some table sets here. Small for 15-point games, large for like 4x4s for your bigger games. Up to you, obviously, what size game you're playing. These table sets are okay, but there's not many of them. There's like 3 in here, and then 4 in here. So we need to get a map on here. And as I said, we also have the Wyrock No Dice map pack. So if we go into games here, and then go into here and hit search, we will find all of the assets that belong to this. And let's say I like the sound of this one, Hellet Modification Factory. So we drag the bag out and drop it on the table, and then we pick the bag back up and we drop it here. And voila, a table loads. Now you will see probably some assets won't load properly. That tends to happen for me. Although this one looks like it's going well so far. The first thing you're going to see is this big old green grid on the table. This is really handy during deployment. On a 4x4 table like this, you're usually deploying 12 inches, or you might have forward deploy +4 or forward deploy +8. So this is a really easy way to be able to see how far you're deploying, because each one of these squares is 4 inches. So the grid is brilliant for the deployment phase. However, obviously in Infinity, you're not allowed to pre-measure, so you are also going to want to turn that off. You just go to Options, you go to Grid, and click Show Lines, and the grid disappears. And now we have a beautiful, stunning, lovely looking Infinity map with tons of terrain, gorgeous trees. We've got some water features here. Look at this. So to measure, you just hold the tab key and it will measure from one point to another. If you have a model and you want to measure how far it moves, you pick it up, then hold tab, and it will measure how far you're moving the model. So something like an orc that can move 6 inches, that tells me I can move it to here. Q and E rotate on the spot. And if you need to get into any tight areas, and again, thank you so much to Kev from Loss of Lieutenant for showing me this, because I didn't know. If you hold N, as in N for November, you can also nudge the model. So you've got lots of different options for moving them around. So you've got a map loaded. You know where to access rules because they're in here, and they're also on the army app. Now, off screen here, I've got this army separately, and obviously I now want to grab the figures out for this army. So like I say, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can drop them into this hidden zone here, put them in your miniatures case, bring it over. For purposes of ease, I'm just going to create the army openly. You probably wouldn't want to do this normally because anything that is hidden information, you would not be able to hide this way. But you can see that I've got Ariadne open on the side of the screen here, and just off the screen, I've also got my army list, and I can start adding my units. So first of all, Veteran Kazakh. We now have a team assembled, and Where's that orc trooper gone from earlier? Where did we leave him? Is he over here? Yeah, he's over here now. We've got this random orc trooper as well, so I can just show you some interactions between models. We have a list, and we want to play a game. Obviously, we follow the normal procedures for deployment. Like I say, I have to assume to a degree that you know the basics of playing a game, because otherwise this video doesn't become how to use Tabletop Simulator, it becomes how to play Code 1, which is, you know, a different video for a different audience. If you don't know how to play Code 1, there are a bunch of great tutorials already on YouTube. Infinity Gamer has a wonderful one that goes through the intro missions, so highly recommend that one. So we'd go through the normal deployment sequence, and let's say that we're in the middle of a game now, and we're just going to set up a little interaction so that we can take a look at how we would manage an interaction. So the colored section is obviously the line of fire, the front half of the base. So let's put these two models in a relationship to each other as if they're actually in a firefight, i.e. facing each other. Couple of things with the controls: right click swivels around like this, mouse wheel zooms in and out like this, left click interacts. You can see every time I click, bop, bop, bop. If you right click these, you'll see that they've got two states. You can switch between these states really easily just using 1 and 2 on your numpad. And you see that state 2 is the silhouette of the model. And the silhouette is how you determine line of sight in Infinity. So at the moment, this veteran Kazakh can't see that orc. The silhouette you can see here is hidden entirely by this scenery. It's totally obscured, cannot see it. So let's say if you were going to do a move, you're probably not in silhouette mode at the time. So say you're the orc player and you're going to do a move, and you spend an order and you declare that this trooper's doing a move short skill, and you now need to show where it's going. You hold left click to pick it up, you hold tab to put the ruler on, and you start to work out where it's going. It's going to at least go to here, at which point the Mormaer is definitely going to see it, or the veteran Kazakh. And then we'll say the remaining 2 inches of its movement, it wanted to come over here and tuck in to this wall. So obviously we could see that there was a point where it was out of cover, where the Mormaer could take a shot at it. So that's the point in its movement that the Mormaer would take a shot. So the veteran Kazakh would have declared ARO BS attack, and he would say, I would like to make that BS attack at the point where your orc was in the open. The orc's going to declare BS attack back with its multi-rifle, and we can now check ranges. This is in good range. This is not in good range. I think it's 16 for good range. Something that if you don't know, quickly just going back to the army builder, if you ever need to check weapon stats, obviously most of you will know about this pop-up where you hit the gun here and it gives you the weapon profiles. A lot of people miss this one, where you can just reduce it to the weapon profiles that are in your list. And we can now see 8 to 16 is 0. So we're not in bad range, we're just in 0 range. So there was no cover at the point we were shooting. We're BS 13, so we're going to just be on 13s. Has this got any mimetism? I don't think so. Nope, no mimetism or anything. And then the orc would be on BS 14, -3 for cover. And I believe the Kazakh's got mimetism -3. So -6. So the orc's going to be taking 3 shots on 8s. So the Ariadne player would roll their 1 shot on 13s. They scored a 7. Meanwhile, the orc player over here would be rolling their 3 shots on 8s. Okay, so we've got miss, miss, and then this 4 would be killed by the 7. So the Ariadne player was successful there. AP HMG, so it's going to be 15 damage AP. The orc is armor 4 reduced to 2. It had no cover at the point it was shot. So the orc is going to be saving on 13s. The orc player would roll their save. Rolly, rolly. They got a 14. The orc is okay, doesn't sustain a wound. So you can see that's how an interaction works on Tabletop Simulator. It's very similar to how it is in real life. It's not particularly different or difficult or hard to do. It's just a lot of looking around and moving around, and you know, opponents will help you. One of the nice things about Infinity players in general is they're very willing to help each other. They're not really the kind of people who leave each other hanging. Very, very easy, very, very straightforward experience. Templates, in case you're wondering, they will automatically hover above the highest piece of scenery, and the shadow for templates is always cast directly underneath where they are. So you actually don't need the template to land. The shadow is exactly the same size, and it's cast exactly where the template is. So you can actually just use the shadow to tell. So for example, if we said that our Mormare had a flamethrower, there is just outside here, you can see it's just outside because that shadow would show us. That's the basics of interacting with Tabletop Simulator, using it to play games of Code 1. It's really simple, really straightforward. It's all very straightforward stuff. Like I say, templates just use the shadow. The shadow is the easiest way to tell what the template can see. Silhouette mode, just swap between 1 and 2 to change between silhouette mode and not silhouette mode. For the stats for your models, just keep Army 7 up in a spare window. Most of us these days multi-monitor. Most people are not single monitor people anymore. If you don't have a spare monitor, keep this up on your phone. Stats right there for you. It's a great way to get games in. And one of the most wonderful things about it, one of the reasons I really support and love this tool specifically, is that it lets you play games with people overseas that you would never normally get to play with. You know, I still physically collect and physically paint miniatures. Here's one that you might have seen recently. I still like to physically play games with those miniatures. That is really important to me. There is a social aspect to it. There is just physically getting the chance to take your miniatures out and handle them and be in that real world environment. All of those things are important. You shouldn't view Tabletop Simulator as a replacement to those. The point of Tabletop Simulator is, A, to give you access to games when you couldn't otherwise play. And that's not just a distance thing. It also just takes less time. Setting up a game to play on TTS, there's no packing and unpacking of all this scenery and all that kind of thing. Getting your model collection sorted and everything is super quick. You can turn a full game around in an hour to an hour and a half instead of like 2 to 3 hours. And that is really important for people's schedules. You also don't have to leave the house, so there's no travel time to add to that. So the idea with TTS is it's a good way to learn, it's a good way to get reps in, it's a good way to bolster your experience and your knowledge of the game, so that when you invest all of that time, effort, and energy into painting physical models, showing up to a tournament or a games day or a session or whatever, playing with people, your experience at those events is better because you are more familiar with the game, you are more familiar with the models, you are more familiar with the interactions. There's less having to stop and look at books because you've played so many more games that you're more familiar and you understand a lot quicker and a lot easier. So yeah, one of the things that we do is over in my Discord server, the majority of the people that you will see on the streams on Saturdays, like today was supposed to be, the vast majority of those people will be patrons, and they're from all over the world. And you will see as the weeks go on and as we play more games. Today's planned opponent is from the States. I will obviously reschedule a game with them, so you will get to meet them at some point. And we play in my Discord server, and we teach people how to play using Tabletop Simulator. Like, how much easier is it to learn a game when you've just got to invest in a £7.50 piece of software? No miniatures, no rule books, no templates, no scenery. You've just got to spend that £7.50 on this piece of software, and then you can learn to play the game. And we can play pickup games with people that way. Show them the basics of, you know, how to move, how to shoot, how to claim objectives, how to close combat, what super jump does, what climbing plus does, that kind of thing. Really easy to show them this way. So I do think it's great. I do think it's brilliant. I think it's now is a great time, especially with certain parts of the world going back into lockdown, certain people still not feeling entirely comfortable going to in-person tournaments because of the virus. There are a lot of really good reasons to get into Code 1 on Tabletop Simulator at the moment. And I hope that this has served as a nice little way to make it a bit easier for you to wrap your head around how it plays and what you have to do to make it all work. That's really it, folks. If you want to come and play with us, The link to the Patreon is in the description. Sign up to the Patreon for as little as £1 a month, and you'll have opportunities to see content early, to join us in the Discord, to make decisions with me on future content, to play games of things like Code 1 over Tabletop Simulator, to share your painting and get tips and advice. There's all sorts of cool reasons to join the Patreon. So if you're watching and you're not a patron, do consider it. Like I say, the bottom tier is £1 a month and you get access to all of that. As you go up the tiers, you just get more on top. Outside of that, if you're not currently a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate that as well. That would be fantastic. Like the video so that YouTube shows it to more people. And I will see you folks on Wednesday. Wednesday, we've got a really cool, really interesting video coming out. So be prepared for that one. Thanks a lot, folks. And I will see you all soon. Cheers.